Recording in progress.
Awesome. Welcome everyone to our virtual Camp Echo traditional camp info session tonight. Really excited to have you all here. My name is Bernard Rocca. I'm the Executive Director of Camp Echo. This will be my 11th season in this role. Really excited to continue supporting our campers, our parents, our alumni, our community, and having positive camp experiences through Camp Echo and deepening our sense of belonging to community and to each other and to camp. This is Camp Echo's 100th anniversary on Ryerson Lake in our current location in Fremont, Michigan, which we're really excited about. I am going to encourage you in our virtual kind of webinar format to take advantage of the Zoom format. There is a Q&A option, and if you have questions, we do welcome you to post those into the Q&A area in Zoom if you're able to do that. You can also throw things in the chat, though. We'll probably use Q&A more, and we might post some links on occasion in the chat box and places where you can find more resources. But that is where we're going to find things. And we have a presentation that should take us about 45 minutes, maybe less. We're going to try to move quickly and maybe a little more quickly virtually, and then stick around to answer questions as long as possible. So feel free to throw questions in the chat, again, in the Q&A, and we will let you know if we're going to answer those later in the presentation, and we'll work some of those answers in as we go. Yeah. Also joining me, we have two other Camp Echo full-time staff members, and I'm going to invite Miki and then Amiee to introduce themselves.
Hi, everyone. As Bernard said, my name is Miki, nickname, full name Miki Serin. I am the Camp Echo Operation Coordinator. So I am directly under the program directors helping in the day-to-day of camp life.
Hello, everybody. My name is Amiee Woodrow. One of two program directors here at Camp Echo. I have the best job of supervising the traditional camp campers. Lindy has the other best job of supervising the trips campers. Together, we support all of our staff. I spent the winter lucky enough to hire all of the awesome people that are going to get to work with our kids this summer. And if your kiddo is a craft kid and is interested in doing arts and crafts at camp, they'll probably spend some time hanging out with me because I love making a friendship bracelet in the summer.
Awesome. And Miki, Amiee, and I all have the joy of spending our entire summer at Camp Echo. So three of us work out of the McGaw YMCA in Evanston, Illinois throughout the school year, and then make the move in May to Camp Echo for the summer season. I actually moved up about a week ago, and I'm in one of our office yurts. If it gets kind of loud, you hear a lot of what sounds like rain on a roof. That's because in the yurt, it does sometimes sound like that. We just had a little bit of a rainstorm pass through, probably a few hours delayed from you all. That's something in the summer. Oftentimes storms that hit the Chicago area pass through and find their way to Michigan if they don't head south. But so we are want to be familiar faces to you all campers who are coming to camp this summer. Three of many people, like Amiee said, who are at camp to help you, to support you, who can answer your questions throughout the summer while you're at camp. Without further ado, I am going to pop that presentation back on. Just want you all to be able to see me, and not quite sure if you can see our faces while we are also sharing our screen. So I wanted to put that up here. And so here we are, our traditional camp info session. So the staff, a lot of times people are curious about the staff, and this is a staff photo from last summer. Whenever we take a group photo at Camp Echo, tend to take what we call a regular photo, or just a smile, and then also a wacky photo. And this is our wacky photo. It's actually from a weekend last summer. We actually had some kiddos at camp during our staff training. Some campers, and so there's some campers mixed in front of our dining hall there, having a lot of fun. As Amiee said, she has been working really hard all year hiring our incredible counselors. And so campers often want to know, who are the counselors going to be? And so every cabin has about 6 to 10 campers, usually closer to the 10 campers. and 2 counselors, always 2 counselors living in the cabin, and sometimes a 3rd counselor who maybe is working with the cabin that doesn't live in the cabin. And one of the 2 counselors will always be the same kind of gender identity. If we have a boys cabin, a girls cabin, at least one of the counselors will be of that gender identity. In all gender cabins, we have a mix of gender identities. And again, in the boys cabins or girls cabins, sometimes the 2nd counselor or a 3rd counselor on occasion will be a counselor of a different gender identity. All of our counselors are 18 years or older and go through rigorous background checks, staff training, and about 80% of our staff at Camp Echo this summer have some previous affiliation with Camp Echo, either being a camper themselves, being a staff member in the past, maybe coming family camp. So a lot of passion for serving campers at our camp. So what are we going to cover here tonight? We are going to talk about our goals and values at camp, kind of some pre-camp planning tips, what kind of a schedule at camp looks like, and some special days and activities, and some common questions. Though again, we really love camper and parent questions. Do not hesitate to start popping those into the chat box, and know that we're going to use some different terminology sometimes at camp, and we really work hard to explain any words that are unique to Camp Echo. So I'll share a few right now. A lot of these are geographical in nature, but a couple I want to shine a light on. Kybo, K-Y-B-O, that's what we refer to our bathhouses as. So we talk about Kybo East, West, North, and Way North, our 4 bathhouses that are in different geographical areas of camp. We sometimes talk about Saska, which is our rest hour, really popular at camp. And some other things such as the TP or the trading post, which is our camp store at Camp Echo. So those are a few of them. CITs are our counselors in training, some of our older campers. So again, we'll work hard to explain, but if you hear me using a word and you're not sure what that word is, another great question to pop into that Q&A section. Our goals at camp. Most importantly, we want to make sure everyone's safe, physically, emotionally. Really important to us at Camp Echo. We work really hard to build out practices and protocols so that everyone at camp is safe and everyone is helping each other be safe and knows what unsafe behaviors look like. So we'll talk about that a lot in the early days of camp, and the more information parents can provide to us in our forms. I know that we just hit our camp forms deadline recently. And so a lot of y'all are getting reminders to submit those forms, and that information from parents really helps us keep campers safe. So we appreciate all the information we provide in that process. Communities, we are desiring to make a space where everyone feels included. That is our goal, and over time, oftentimes when you talk to people who've been to Camp Echo for a long time, that's what carries through. They often talk about it's the people that truly make the place, that make Camp Echo special. And so really creating that deep sense of community, of inclusion, and belonging, and then personal growth, opportunities to grow and try new things, become more confident, be independent, and have a whole lot of fun. And we do that kind of through our values that guide our actions. So caring, respect, responsibility, honesty, and fun. On the right-hand side of the screen, you'll see on the top picture is a box where campers and staff can put in nominations when they see people really exhibiting those behaviors. We all have to recognize our campers and staff for demonstrating those core values every day. And on the bottom, you see kind of what we call full value contract that a cabin creates on the first day or 2 of camp to talk about what those values mean in their space. So campers, we want you to start thinking, what does it mean to you to be caring? What does it mean to be respectful? What do you need from your peers and from your counselors to have a really positive experience together? Because everyone is living together. You're living with as many as 9 other campers and 2 counselors in a space together, and it's really important that you all have shared language and know what each other needs. So sessions, we got a lot of different sessions of traditional camp, and we have our 2-week sessions 2, 3, 4, and 5. Then we have sessions 1 and 6, which are we call kind of standalone 1-week sessions. Only thing going on during those sessions are the 1-week sessions, then 2A, 2B, 3A, and 3B, which are 1-week sessions within a 2-week session. However, campers that are in those 1-week sessions will be in cabins with other campers in that 1-week option. So and 2-week campers will be with other 2-week campers. So it's not like a few campers are going to leave some of the cabins midway through the session and other campers coming in. The campers will be in a cabin with others who are at camp for the same duration as they are. So we're going to camp. 90%, if not more, of our campers ride the buses from Evanston, Illinois, to and from Camp Echo. So the buses line up in front of the McGall YMCA at 1000 Grove Street in Evanston. And we usually have anywhere from 2 to 6 buses, depending on the session. Earlier in the summer, it tends to be a few less because we have these different session intervals. And then later in the summer, a few more because everyone is going up and coming back together. And you'll be assigned to a bus. You'll get an email ahead of the session which bus you're assigned to. And the bus assignments are by age. So kind of our youngest campers on one bus and the next group on through to our oldest campers. Though we can make adjustments after we send out the bus assignments if, sometimes sibling pairs want to be on the bus together, they're different ages, or other unique circumstances that we're happy to accommodate. We do ask that you check in your medications before the bus departure if you're able to. So on Thursday and Saturday before our Sunday departures, and then on Thursdays leading up to our Saturday departures. It really helps us make sure the process is stress-free and kind of smooth. If everyone shows up the morning of departure with all their medications, and there are a lot of camper medications, it's perfectly normal for that to happen. Then it can create a backlog and create an anxiety or a rush, and we want to make sure that we're getting the medications right. And really important that we check in our medications in their original packaging. We cannot accept pill boxes or Ziploc bags with any sort of medications. And medications include any prescribed or over-the-counter medications and need to be uploaded into Camp in Touch. So some of you may have already submitted those forms. We also know that sometimes those medications change between when you complete the forms and summer, and so we ask you to update those accordingly. Buses start loading for our Sunday departures at 8:30 a.m. and around 12:30 p.m. on those Saturdays. And so if you're driving your camper up to camp, which is totally fine, makes sense for a lot of people if they don't live in the Evanston area or if they just want to see camp or are heading that way anyways. We ask you to drop off around 2 o'clock Eastern time. Recognize there's a 1-hour time change. And for sessions 2B and 3B, because those Saturday arrivals are a little bit later in the day, we ask that drop-offs be around 6 p.m. All right, so the first day of camp, you get to camp, and I see that some of those questions are around that first day of camp and meeting your cabin and such. And I do see a quick question there about emergency meds, so like inhalers, and I guess we group like EpiPens into that category. Those can be kept with campers on the bus, but it's important that staff be aware that's happening. So we want to make sure that that's a conversation at the check-in. We know where those medications are. Again, I'm seeing a lot of good questions about medications, and Amiee is, I think, answering a lot of those, but given how many there are, I'm happy to answer those. So melatonin is considered over-the-counter medication, Advil, vitamins, any pills, prescribed lotions, or things that are needed to address health concerns. And those need to be administered by our clinic staff, and we'll talk a little bit more about that process in a few moments. But our licensing requirements that campers cannot self-administer any medications. And so really the only things that they would be able to keep are any kind of non-prescribed, kind of over-the-counter lotions that they are part of their daily health routine. But our clinic is stocked with a lot of over-the-counter medication. So if it's an as-needed thing like Advil or allergy med that's only needed on occasion, you don't need to send that in. That's one less thing to check in. Our health clinic is stocked with most over-the-counter medications to address fever, stomach pain, kind of, I'd say, I don't want to say standard because nothing is standard, but many common over-the-counter ailments. And yeah, we'll talk about our med process a little bit more in just a second here. So you get off the bus, you go down, you'll see that these campers are walking off our sports courts. That's where we announce our cabin assignments. So we announce our cabin assignments and our counselors. on arrival at camp. And we do that because, you know, we know a lot of things can change between leading up to camp. Sometimes we have last minute cancellations and we move people around or requests change, and we don't want to kind of communicate out some assignments could then change later. And so people, especially our first time campers, really make sure that they are going to be in a cabin with someone they've requested. The way our cabin requests work, again, they're forms in Camp in Touch where you complete your camper forms to make a cabin request, is that we guarantee mutual requests of up to 3 people, which means each individual can only request up to 2 people. And so if, you know, I'll use Miki and Amiee and myself as examples. So if I were to request Miki and Amiee, Amiee requests Miki and Bernard, Miki requests Amiee and Bernard, the 3 of us would all be in a cabin together. However, if I request Miki and Amiee, and Miki requests Amiee, but then requests another person, and then that other person requests someone else, it starts to create what we call chains of sometimes 4, 5, 6, or more people who kind of somehow know each other. And one of our goals at camp around community is making new friends, and it's really important that happen. And so that's why one of the reasons why we break up groups of more than 3 campers into different cabins. And it also can be hard for campers who are new, who maybe don't know as many people, if a group of 5 or 6 or 7 are all together. Now there are sometimes exceptions if we have, because we keep our grades, you know, within 1 grade of each other. So, you know, generally like 3rd and 4th graders would be together, or 4th and 5th graders. But we try to avoid having bigger swings than that. But sometimes based on enrollment, you know, we might only have, say we have 10 4th graders coming to camp during a session. You know, we decide to keep them all together in a cabin, and more than 3 of them know each other, then sometimes that does lead to larger groups in the cabins, and our counselors work really hard to make sure that that isn't detrimental to the group. So we have a really great track record of working through these logistics with our camper requests. Every once in a while, you know, campers or parents are concerned that we got it wrong, and we always will revisit it and look and see if we did something wrong. But, you know, sometimes parents also haven't communicated correctly with each other. And so sometimes there's a misunderstanding there. So we just ask parents who, when you're putting in those cabin requests, to make sure that you've coordinated with the other parents if it's a really important request. We do post all the cabin lists on the first evening. So after the campers get to camp is when we post all of those to camp. And again, we have about 6 to 10 usually, in that 8 to 10 campers, and a couple of counselors, 2 counselors in each cabin minimum. So you get to know your cabin, you'll move around camp, do a little tour, see different parts of camp, and start to talk about those core values and expectations for us all to have together. And then you get settled in your cabin. So this is what the cabins look like at Camp Echo. So you can kind of see it's a big kind of long rectangle with bunk beds. So each camper gets either a top bunk or a bottom bunk, and then a little cubby. You can kind of see the wooden cubbies on either side of the bunk beds to store their belongings. And most campers come to camp with their belongings in a duffel bag that they unpack into those cubbies and then slide underneath their bed. And you can see kind of that bottom left photo that, you know, the laundry bag that they might hang over the bunk bed to help hold on to their dirty laundry. And each cabin also has a pop-up changing tent. Privacy is really important to us, and safety. And so campers can change in those pop-up changing tents in any of the cabins or in the bathhouses. But we do expect campers to change privately in their cabins. And that map on the right hand side just kind of gives you a sense of where all the cabins are. The light beige buildings kind of along the perimeter of our peninsula are all of the camper cabins around camp. All right, so we go to do our health check-in and our swim evaluation, and this is a little video of evaluation taking place last summer with one of our groups. And so we have different levels of swimmers. We have our red swimmers, which are beginner and non-swimmers, and then our white swimmers, which are intermediate swimmers, and our blue swimmers. And our blue swimmers are advanced swimmers. And so everyone is a red swimmer to start, so no one is required to take a swim evaluation, but everyone will have the opportunity to take a swim evaluation within the first day or two upon arrival. Every group is scheduled at slightly different times. We try to do most of the groups on the first day, but we also don't want to rush it, and so sometimes our younger groups will do it the following morning. And to be a white swimmer, which is our intermediate swimmer, you have to swim 4 lengths of that swimming area. And again, I'll kind of press play. Swimmers going back and forth there. So from one barge across or from dock across to the other, 4 lengths, 2 laps, and then climb out and then jump into the deeper water and tread or float for approximately 10 or for at least 10 minutes. And then to be a blue swimmer is the same amount of treading and floating with 6 lengths or 3 laps instead of the 4. No one is required to take the swim evaluation. It is optional. We do encourage everyone to do that. Swimming's a big part of camp, and the water and being safe around the water is really important to us. Swimmers in our sessions 2, 3, 4, and 5 will have opportunities if they don't evaluate into the blue level to take swimming as one of their activity rounds to work on their swimming skills. And everyone has opportunities to retake the swim evaluation later on. If sometimes the first day they're just not feeling it, been a long bus ride, and they're just not ready to take it, they can do that at other times. The swim levels do impact some activities at camp. So our advanced water sports such as paddleboarding, sailing, and water skiing do require that you be a white or blue swimmer to do those activities. However, you can also do a lot of activities as a red swimmer with staff. So red swimmers can go sailing, but they need to be on a sailboat with lifeguard. They can go tubing behind our ski boats on a tube with one of our lifeguards, or go out in a canoe with one of our lifeguards as well. So there are some safety precautions related to activities and swim evaluations, and it is not a race. The laps, the swimming portion just needs to be continuous movement of a recognizable stroke. So it could be backstroke, breaststroke, front crawl, but we do ask that the campers, or expect the campers, continue their swimming motion throughout it, so they're not stopping and staying on the bottom for a few. So then we also dinner. It's a long first day, and before we go to dinner and leading up to dinner, we also do our medication check-ins, and so we'll go by our clinic. And in the clinic is where our health staff will check in with each camper individually. They'll talk to the whole group. A cabin will go there together, and they'll talk to the cabin about how to take care of themselves at camp and take their temperatures to make sure they're arriving at camp safely. And but then anyone with a scheduled medication, so again, anyone that's got a vitamin, a prescription medication, something that they take on a daily basis, will have a one-on-one check-in with one of our health officers to make sure we have all the right information, to make sure they know when they're supposed to go to the clinic to take those medications, because our health staff will administer those medications at breakfast and dinner time and bedtime. And then occasionally, if there are other scheduled times, we can accommodate as well. Most campers take their medications either at breakfast, dinner, or at bedtime, and they're directed down to the clinic to take those, and the clinic staff have them all ready and document they're taken. And then campers also meet our health staff and are able to kind of check in at other times if they're not feeling well. So we head to our dining hall for dinner. We're really excited. The bottom 2 pictures on this slide are of our brand new dining hall deck that has been in process for a while, and it's going to be complete for this season. We're just finishing up with some final touches on it. And so about half of our campers will be eating outside on the dining hall deck, and the other will be eating in the dining hall. And we eat all of our meals family style. So you eat with your cabin, and we have some sort of entree for the meal. And like it might be on the first night, oftentimes we'll have pizza with side like asparagus and potato chips, and we'll have pepperoni pizza and cheese pizza. And then we always have alternatives and have a choice bar. I have alternatives for different dietary restrictions. So we always have gluten-free pizzas and dairy-free pizzas, and we check our camper allergens and dietary restrictions before the session. So our kitchen staff know what our various campers and staff need that session. And then we always have a salad bar out at lunch and dinner with wild butter and jelly sandwich option fixings. So we don't have peanut butter or any nut products at camp. But we do have a wild butter, which is a soy-based alternative. It's a long first day, so we're still going here. We have our opening campfire, songs, skits, and some different traditions that we do together. And it's really a lot of fun, a lot of high energy to kind of kick off our first day and bring it to a close. So we got through our first day. What a day. Now I'm going to turn it over to Amy to walk us through kind of a typical day camp.
All right. So hold on, I have a little feedback. Okay. So after we do our very awesome first day of camp, we get welcome to camp, we got moved into our cabins. Now we're ready to start our day. Some mornings at camp, a cabin group might do extra polar bear fun in the morning. Something like a quick dip in the lake or like an early morning fun run. If you're interested in being the first people awake and moving around camp, make sure you talk to your counselors about a possible polar bear hour part of the day. Other days, we wake up in the morning, we head to the bathhouses, get ourselves ready for the day, check in, make sure everyone's feeling good, head to flag raising, and then head to our morning reflection. So a time of day where we do a personal reflection, camp reflection on either a value or a poem or a quote that a staff member or group has chosen and wants to share with camp. Usually reflecting on one of those camp core values we talked about earlier at the start of the presentation. And then we make it to one of the best parts of the day, over into the dining hall for breakfast. We get fueled up to get our day started. And then we do cabin cleanup. So if you are a camper who has not practiced making your bed yet, now is the time to do some practice rounds of bed making so that you can make sure you're contributing to your cabin being nice and tidy, and potentially winning the Clean Cabin Award at camp. After we do our clean cabin, we have a whole morning of camp activities. Camp activities are our camp activities that you'll sign up for and you'll go to each day of camp. So if I sign up for archery, arts and crafts, and swim lessons, I'll go to that activity 4 times throughout the week. The way those get selected is on the first day, the staff will do commercials basically for the camp activities, tell you what activities are available, and then you will rank your camp activities. We put them into our system, and then they get assigned to you. So you might not get your top 3 choices. You might get your top choice and then ones that are maybe a little further down your list, but all of the activities are an opportunity to either do something you know you already like or learn about something new. If you're attending sessions 1 and 6 for your activities, you'll get to do cabin group activities as opposed to the camp activities throughout the day. So your cabin will go to camp activities together throughout the day. All right, and then after we do our morning of camp activities, we head to lunch. And then after lunch, this is the sweetest part of the day, Saska. Again, that's our rest hour in the day. That's where campers can do quiet activities in their bunk, so they can work on a friendship bracelet. They could take a nap if that's what their body needs, but just a time to have some quiet rest time. During that time as well, if your camper is signed up, or if you've mailed your camper a letter, that is a great time for your campers to respond to you. So kiddos, if your parents are expecting letters back after they write you one, that's the perfect time to start writing one. Bernard, do you want to share a little bit more about how the system works for getting replies to camp emails?
You know, I love to. I would love nothing more. So the right-hand side of the screen looks like kind of a weird little outline with a barcode. And this is how we have kind of what I would call slightly accelerated written communication between campers and parents. So U.S. Postal Service works great, and we definitely encourage that. I think it's a really fun part of camp that kind of, for a lot of campers, might be one of the few times they've written an actual letter and use a stamp. I recommend sending them with pre-addressed envelopes, or maybe you could work on that with them before they leave, so they know where to send them. But on the right-hand side, when you set is what we call a camper reply. So in Camp in Touch, parents and guardians and family members can send letters that show up as typed letters to the campers, and they come to us at camp as a big PDF, and we print it on regular old printer paper, put it in the campers' mailboxes. They get it, as Amy said it, Saska, and you can check a box when you send those letters to include a reply. And this is what the reply looks like. It's again printed on printer paper with that barcode on the top, and then the camper can write out a response. It has to be in dark ink, no glittery pens or crayons or pencils, because we then collect those next morning at breakfast at mail call and scan them. And those, it has to be dark ink to show up when we scan them, and then upload them back to Camp in Touch. And Camp in Touch, because of that barcode, is able to send all the letters as individual PDFs to all the different parents who provided those letters. So it's great to talk to your camper in advance about what your expectation is for letter writing. We often get questions from parents, why hasn't my kid written me? And sometimes it's because they're just having so much fun and so caught up that they just haven't been able to stop and write a letter, and then we remind them, and we remind them at breakfast often and throughout the day at meals to write those letters. But good to set those expectations in advance. Every family does. These do require what are called camp stamps, and every family receives a certain number of camp stamps automatically at the start of when you're enrolled. So I believe everyone has 5 camp stamps per session. And so if you want to send additional letters beyond that, you may have to purchase additional camp stamps through that Camp in Touch system. But that is the process, and a fun way to communicate.
All right, thank you. And then after we have Saska, we do our service task. So everybody's got some responsibility to help give back to camp while they're there, making sure either program area is nice and tidy, or contributing to camp looking spiffy while our campers are there. After we do our service task, we do cabin group. So that's an activity you'll do with your cabin, and that can range from everything from a camp program area. So your cabin may go do archery or arts and crafts or go canoeing all together. Or it could be something like a Bigfoot search or something fun or creative that your camp counselors have come up with, or something that your cabin group is interested in. After we do cabin group, we do snacks, and then we have our first of our 2 free choice times during the day. So we have fun swim. Multiple activities open during that time, so campers can choose if they'd like to go swimming, if they would like to go to arts and crafts, if they would like to have a quiet hour to read a book out on the peninsula. So staff are stationed at different spots, and the campers are supervised while they move between the activities that are calling their name that day. After we do fun swim, we'll go to flag lowering. Have a little cabin time to get ready for dinner, get ready for our evening, because there are still more activities coming up. After we have dinner, we do Twilight Fun, which is a second free choice time during the day. Again, we'll let kids know what's open every day, and they can choose their activity during that time period. After we do Twilight Fun, we then get to do our evening program, which is an all camp activity altogether. That's everything from, we might do a running around tag game, we might do a funny fashion show, just depending on what our unit leader group comes up with for that week. After we do evening program, time to get ready for bed, start winding down, and then the cabins will end their day with a reflection and then get everyone in their bunks and get rested for the next day, because we get to do that whole day many more times while we're at camp. A couple of the traditional camp activities that our kiddos can do while they're at camp: archery, arts and crafts, biking, dance, drama, fishing, lots of different options for the kids to choose from while they are at camp.
Talk about horses a little bit. I'm going to talk a little bit more about horses now and the registration process, and then answer a few of the questions that we've got in the Q&A. Some good questions. So horses, horseback, everyone has an opportunity to engage with our horses. So a lot of times cabin groups will go to horses during the free choice times. We might have what we call open barn, where campers can go up and learn how to groom the horses and safely interact with the horses. And or we might have ring rides. But if your camper is really thrilled about horses, really wants to have that horse experience and be signed up, be in captivity 5 days in a row, then you want to sign up for horseback riding in advance. And several of our sessions of horseback riding are currently full, but sometimes campers get to camp and they have a change of heart. So, you know, those wait lists do come into play at that time. And these are offered during sessions 2 through 6, or excuse me, 2 through 5. During sessions 1 and 5, we don't have the captivities where campers are going around individually. You know, campers are going around with their cabins, so we don't offer the horseback riding registration during that session. But you can do that, sign up in advance via Camp in Touch. And again, we still have some spots available, I believe, in sessions 4 and 5, but those might be the only ones at this point. I do want to, or it looks like someone might have just answered a question about water safety protocols for motorized sports like water skiing and tubing. And Amiee talked about kind of our boat drivers being trained through that, and they go through an online boater safety course as well as very thorough in-person training with our staff. But on all of our boats, people wear life jackets. Staff and campers wear life jackets anytime we are out on the water, whether that be in canoes, kayaks, paddleboards, pontoon boats, sailboats, water ski boats, or water skiing and tubing. Always have life jackets on. And then a question about showering after swimming. So campers have multiple opportunities to shower every day. It's not always immediately following showering. For instance, if someone is swimming as their first captivity first thing in the morning, oftentimes they're going to go directly from that to their next activity. So they might go from that to, say, arts and crafts, and then to another, say, horseback riding. And so oftentimes the shower times are available during the afternoon, during free choice times, or sometimes cabins will go as a cabin during cabin group times. And if any campers have specific concerns around showering and specific health concerns and needing to shower promptly after swimming, then that's a great conversation to have with their counselor to think if there's a way that we can accommodate that. I do see a question also if we have knee boarding. We do not have knee boarding in our water sports area. We have water skiing and wakeboarding along with tubing. All right, so a lot of great questions popping up in the chat box. I'm going to let Amiee and Miki do their best to answer some of those questions in writing, and then we'll answer live kind of questions that remain. So what else happens at Camp Echo? There are a lot of other kind of specialty programs. So the trading post is a really popular part of camp. Again, that's our camp store, and that's where we offer souvenirs, clothing from Camp Echo, as well as snacks. So every camper, as part of the enrollment process, has a $65 trading post account set up, and that's enough money to buy anything at the camp store. It's not enough to buy everything. We always remind our campers of that, and we remind them that, you know, parents can see the transactions that are made in the camp store through that Camp in Touch account, and they can decide to add more funds, or they can decide to say, no, this is how much they have, not adding funds. And so again, we encourage you to kind of have a conversation with your camper about expectations around that, and you know what your expectations are around how they spend their money. Any balance at the end, if it's more than $20, at the end of the summer, we send out communication to all the families. And if there's more than $20 left in that training post account, we can refund that balance. Anything less than $20 is rolled into our scholarship fund for the following summer. And you can view our online store, campeccotradingpost.com. I think Miki will throw that link in the chat box to kind of get a sense of the things that we sell at camp. A lot of this is still, we haven't updated yet for our summer 2024 merchandise, but you get a sense of the approximate cost and variety of items for purchase there. And then during Twilight Fun, which is the after dinner free choice time, is when campers can buy a snack and can hang out, socialize with their friends. We have Gushers, Skittles, ice cream cookie sandwiches, variety of sweet choices, and campers may buy one or two of those when they visit the camp store. All right. We have undernights and overnights, so all of our campers in traditional camp go on either an undernight or an overnight during their time at camp. And both undernights and overnights involve going out to a site on camp. Again, we have 500 acres, so going to a fire pit somewhere on our camp property. The older kids generally go a little bit further away. Younger kids stay pretty close to the main part of camp, and they cook their dinner over fire. Here you can see they're making some sizzle burgers, which are like hamburgers wrapped in aluminum foil. And they'll make s'mores, they'll play some games, they'll look at the stars. And then our younger campers, so rising 3rd through 5th graders generally, are doing undernights, which means they come back to the cabin and sleep in their cabin for the night after doing all those fun activities around the campfire. Whereas our 6th through 8th graders will do an overnight, and they'll sleep in tents or shelter at one of these locations, and come back to their cabin the next morning, get to have a nice shower, and get on with the day. It's often a highlight. Definitely pushes some of our campers out of their, what we call their comfort zone, into their learning zone. We talk about that a lot, how camp is a space where, we get pushed out of our comfort zone into kind of doing new things that might be a tiny bit uncomfortable, but we are supporting them through that and making really wonderful memories in the process. Olympics are our 2-week sessions. In the middle of our 2-week session, we split camp up into teams for a variety of games, and a lot of cheers, a lot of spirit, a lot of fun. We'll give all the campers during those 2-week sessions a shirt for their team. And the Olympics also have different themes that are a lot of fun. Also want to take a quick moment to talk about Trailblazers, which is an add-on to our traditional camp program. And Trailblazers for 7th and 8th graders. And so, this might be something that's a few years out, but we like to talk about kind of progression at camp. Progression is a really important part of the learning and growth at camp, as people find the areas of camp they're really passionate about. So those that really love those overnights and those getting out into nature, although all of our camp is pretty nature-based, but a little bit more rustic camping. We have Trailblazers, which is a combined program where it's 1 week of traditional camp, everything we've been talking about so far, and 1 week of a wilderness camping experience, either canoeing on the Manistee River, which is a couple hours north of us, or going backpacking generally on the Manitou Islands, which are islands in Lake Michigan off of Sleeping Bear Dunes. So that's a really popular opportunity and kind of start of our adventure tripping program. And if you're wondering why these pictures look like they might be dated, they might have like a little bit of old school vibe on them, it's because they were taken with disposable cameras. We send all of our adventure trips off with a disposable camera that's filmed, that when we get it back, campers each get to take a couple pictures on their trip, and we take it to the Walgreens and send it off. Takes a few weeks to get them developed. We always get some pretty awesome memories from the camper photos, and have fun. So many other fun things that happen at camp. Wacky Wednesday. So a lot of times campers and staff like to dress a little extra wacky on Wednesday, maybe dress up like a hot dog, or maybe wear a funny hat or a wig. Morning music during breakfast every day as we're cleaning up, play a few pop music songs to kind of get the day started, get a lot of energy. Birthdays at camp are really fun. A lot of campers end up celebrating their birthday at camp, and we'll give them a cake. And if they want us to, we'll sing happy birthday to them in the dining hall as all of camp. Some campers choose not to do that because it's a little too much and overwhelming, which is totally fine. Rainy days, we got all sorts of fun kind of skit games, competition, bingo, all sorts of fun things, board games, and a variety of programming for when it's a little bit rainy. And then other special interest days that our staff come up with night hikes, seeing the stars. I mean, the stars are one of my favorite parts of camp, and so many other fun activities. I think I'm going to pass it back here to Amiee to talk a little bit about getting ready for camp.
Alrighty, prepping for camp. We know camp is just as much of an experience for our campers who are coming to see us as it is for our parents who are sending their kiddos to us for a week or 2 weeks or more. So make sure when you're filling out those camp forms, which are currently due, if you have not gotten to them quite yet, fill out those camp forms together so that your camper knows what info you're sharing with us, what info we have to make sure that we're ready to welcome them to camp. Make sure we're focusing on positive anticipation. Talk with your kiddo or campers right now, talk with your parents about missing home. It's inevitable that at some point you're going to miss home a little bit. The mattress might feel different. The food is going to be a little different. But really think about how you're going to push through those things that are different, because different doesn't mean bad, just means different. Reassure yourself that you're not the only one who misses home. Every now and then when I'm at camp in the summer, I miss home too. So think about if you're going to write a letter to your family, if you would like to, if you're missing home, or if you've got a special stuffy that's going to come with you to camp, come up with those strategies right now so that you're ready and prepared to get support from the people around you when you're at camp, and also work through those feelings that are new or, a challenge that you're facing while you're not at home. One of the things that you can do to practice being away from home is having some sleepovers with friends or relatives. Parents, when we're waving goodbye at the bus, blow kisses with big smiles and make sure everybody is excited and looking forward to your kiddos leaving to go to camp. And like we talked about earlier, come up with that letter writing plan. All right, when you're packing for camp, so another part of making sure that you are prepared, the most important thing that you can do to prepare for camp is to put your name on everything. No item too big, no item too small, no item too silly. The bag for the sleeping bag, your day pack that you're going to bring with you so that you are prepared for the day. You can keep your different clothing needs that you have for different activities that you're doing in your day pack. You can keep your water bottle in your day pack, your sunscreen, your bug spray. Put your name on the backpack, put your name on all the stuff you're putting in it. Parents, when you're helping pack for camp, make sure your campers are helping pack their bag. There are so many beach towels in the lost and found at the end of summer because the kiddos don't recognize them. Put a name on them and show them what you're sending with them. If you want to bring some extra funny hats or any wacky gear, please do. Goofiness is welcome at camp. So if you've got any wacky stuff you want to bring it with you. Things that need to stay at home. Money stays at home. The camp store has no function to accept cash. All camp store funds go in that Camp and Touch account. Anything with a screen needs to stay at home. We are focused on our experience while we're at camp. Don't want the distractions of the screen. We want to make sure that everyone is a part of the experience at camp. And then anything that you are not allowed to have at school or not allowed to have legally also needs to stay at home, or maybe not at home, maybe nowhere, right? Because we're not supposed to have some of these things. So drugs, tobacco, vapes, all of that stays off of camp. None of that is welcome at Echo. Yep, make sure you label everything. No item too small. There's lots of lost and found at the end of the year. And then the best thing about camp is that we are all surrounded by so many people that are just there to help. So if there is something that you need while you're at camp, campers, sometimes it is hard to ask for help. That's something that even as an adult, sometimes I'm still practicing. But if you need something, ask. The counselors are there to help you. The counselors are there to make sure you have what you need. Miki and Bernard and I are also there to make sure you have what you need and that you feel emotionally safe and physically safe and well taken care of. So if there's ever anything that you need help with, that's our whole job. That's our whole job. So if there's something like you don't know what's going on in the schedule, you don't know what your captivity is, you're really not sure the name of a friend in your cabin, if you have an accident in your bunk and you need help getting it cleaned up and getting things taken care of, if you're missing home, if anyone is mean to you, if something happens that you don't like, talk to your counselors about it. they are there to help and make sure that you have a great, safe experience, and that everyone in the group has a great and safe experience. And then that's also something that you could practice now too, campers, while you're getting ready for camp. If there's something that you need from your parents and you ask for help, remember that you are good at asking for help, and all of us are more successful when we get the support we need.
Something I'll add that, you know, I've heard Amiee say before that I think is a really helpful reminder is it's also great to ask if there's something that helps you in the school setting, whether it be like having a printed out schedule or different things that help you in different spaces. And, you know, we want to help you with that at camp as well. And so, again, that's something that's helpful in the camper forums. If there's a accommodation or a resource that's really helpful in other settings, oftentimes it's helpful at camp as well. So campers, families, let us know about those things so that we can set kids up for as much success as possible. I do want to pause for a second here and answer a couple questions that were in the chat box. I just felt like I couldn't really explain it easily typing as I could out loud. So one was around how people sign up for camp activities, and I might have missed it, or we might have not explained it quite as well as we should do. So the way captivity signups work is that the campers, or excuse me, counselors, the activity instructors, will do skits before signups, and they'll kind of tell the campers what all the different activities are, and then the campers will get a little form, piece of paper, and they'll rank their preferences. They'll rank like their top 8 choices. The reason we do 8 is because if everyone puts the same things as their top 3 choices, unfortunately, we can't put 150 kids into water skiing or arts and crafts. And so we take all those preferences and then we upload them into that magical system we keep talking about, Camp in Touch. And it has a scheduling feature that then optimizes the schedule for everyone as much as possible. And so, you know, some people might get their first and their third and their 5th choice. Some people might get their 2nd, 3rd, and 4th choice. But that's how we assign the activities. So then the next morning before we go to our activity rounds is when campers will find out what their activities are. Now, sometimes they're a little disappointed. They're like, I'll put that as my 8th choice, but I really don't want to do it. And you know, they'll have an opportunity to talk to Amiee or one of the activity specialists. And, you know, we'll usually encourage campers to at least try it for a day. Say, listen, try it for a day, give it a shot. I know it's new, it's different, but maybe this isn't something you've had an opportunity to do before, and you'll really like it. And so then they give it a shot, and, you know, if it really is not for them, then you know, we sometimes are able to change them into a different activity. Again, it might not always be their first choice, but maybe we can kind of look at what has space and shift them into a different activity that they're interested in. Regarding horseback riding lessons and different skill levels, we do a horseback evaluation for all of our campers who are signed up for riding lessons when they arrive, so that we can group our riding lessons from beginner, intermediate, and advanced. I will say, you know, we do sometimes have riders who have a lot of experience, and I will say that our horseback riding program is a more introductory program. We focus on a lot on the caring for horses and walk, trot rides. We don't tend to canter or gallop. Definitely don't gallop or canter except in rare circumstances. So I wouldn't set that as an expectation. Walking and trotting would be the norm in space. So that's a little bit about how our activities work. I saw a question about Polaroid cameras. Love Polaroid cameras. There are some clocks like in our dining hall, but campers are welcome to bring a watch. Again, it can't be a smart watch, but just kind of a digital or analog watch that tells the time, but not much else. And we also use the bell to navigate camp. So a bell rings to help us transition from one activity to the next. Awesome. I can't help myself. I love questions. So I'm going to go ahead and answer this last question as well. I see from about do parents get any details daily recap about how their kids are doing each day? And So we don't have personalized recaps each day. We do post news items to the Camp in Touch page to share kind of what's happening at camp broadly. And then we do send counselors complete a camper experience summary at the end of the session that we send out after the session. That kind of highlights what the camper did at camp, what some of the highlights were, what the group did. But that comes out, again, you'll receive that after your camper gets home because we mail those out the following week or so. If parents ever are concerned, if you really need to know what's going on with your camper, you're always welcome to call us at camp and we can check in on them. We are partners with parents and guardians around caring for their kids. And so we're happy to answer those questions, but we don't have a structured recap for every single camper at camp throughout the week. All right, a few last things after camp. So after camp, I talked about that camper experience summary that you'll get. We got surveys, both one for the camper to complete and one for the parent to complete, because we love getting that feedback, helping us know how we can improve. Lost and found, it's not a question of if, but when. Again, we want to label everything. And we do have an online form that we'll send out with those surveys that parents can use to let us know if anything was lost. We do ask you to use that form to kind of detail what's, if it's a blue water bottle, like what else can you tell us about this blue water bottle? And where do you think it was last seen and stuff like that? And then we'll do our best. And if we find things that have names on them, we will usually send them back down to Evanston to be picked up at the McGaw YMCA. If someone's not from the area, then we can ship that home as well. And then camper connections. If your camper makes great friends at camp, that's awesome. That's so much of the camp experience. Encourage them and remind them, and we will as well, to get each other's contact information while they're at camp. Because we won't share out anyone's personal information. We will if someone reaches out to us and says, hey, my camper made this great friend in their cabin, and we'd love to get in touch with them. We can forward that email along to the family of the camper that you're trying to reach. But also sometimes campers don't remember their new friends' last names or things like that. So we'll work through to figure it out, but definitely encourage your campers to to try to get some of that contact information while they're at camp, and to tell you about it though, because we want to make sure that those post-camp connections are healthy and appropriate. So make sure that your campers are telling you if they want to hang out with friends that they made at camp. All right, so much more information. This is the dashboard for the Camp in Touch page, and so again, this is probably familiar to most of you if you've been completing the forms and signing your camper up, but maybe that hasn't been your responsibility. So this forms dashboard, forms and documents, that's where you'll find packing list and the camper forms. And then if you scroll further down, you can see it under the family, you can see the trading post. So that's where you can see what's happening with your camper's trading post account, and add funds if you would like to. Camp stamps, so you can see this person has 24 camp stamps remaining to send letters and get replies as well. Then down here in the online community, that's where you'll see the email for those camper emails and replies. The news, where we post items, and photos. So every day we post anywhere from 100 to 150 photos of camp. This means that we post a lot of photos that show kind of the vibe of camp, what's happening at camp, but doesn't guarantee a photo of every single camper at camp. So you don't expect to see your camper every single day. We do post photos of every cabin within the first couple days, and so you'll definitely see them at least once in that cabin photo, or twice, because we'll also post a wacky photo, and then occasionally throughout the rest of the session. And we do our best to to get a wide mix of campers and camp government at various times, but we are not perfect in that. And then guest accounts, you can provide access to grandparents or other family members through your account. And so that's where you would do that as well. All right. Wow. You all have been asking great questions as we go here. We're going to stick around here and answer more questions, but that is the conclusion of our presentation. And again, we can't possibly touch on everything during this 1 hour presentation. We try to touch on as much as possible, the common questions. But we're happy to stick around, answer more. And I see that we have a question here already. And if you have a really specific question that you want to ask us personally, feel free to send your question to echoinfo@mcgallymca.org, which is and your question will get routed to the appropriate staff member to be able to answer that question, or give us a shout at that phone number shown there. And thank you for the kind words, those that are giving us shout outs, giving us something we call snaps. That's some camp lingo. We like to give snaps when we see people doing great things at camp. So to the questions, and I'm going to stop this slideshow so you can actually see our faces. I don't know that you can while that's presenting, and even though we can't see you all, faces help. So if someone loses something important, like their towel or a water bottle, will you replace for them so they don't go without? Yes, Ton. Great question. We have lots of extra towels. We have lots of extra water bottles. It's really important to us that people have those things that they need. We have a variety of spare items at camp. And so we often, again, provide those, remind campers every day throughout the day, water bottle, sunscreen, towels, bring all of those things. And our health center has a lot of spares of those. And Amiee is known for carrying a bag that has all of that and then some. So that if ever a camper needs something, they say, Amiee, I need a towel. She can probably just like pull it out of her bag and give it to them right away.
The backpack gets larger and larger every year.
Every year. And so yeah, that's great. Can kids call home from camp's phone? Love that question. A little bit of a yes and. We're big into saying yes and to things. So obviously if campers and parents need to talk to each other, like that's certainly, we can make that happen at camp. And we do try to buffer that a little bit, both because we don't have capacity to support kind of a long string of camper phone calls to their parents, and if we did, it'd be somewhat disruptive to the camp experience. And we know that sometimes people get really anxious, and their first reaction is to want to talk to their parents, and that's part of why we go to camp, is to kind of build some of that resiliency, to kind of work through that initial kind of feeling, and get them comfortable talking to other adults who are supportive and can help them. But if a camper says, I need to call my parent, we will call that parent and we'll say, your child wants to talk to you. And here's what we think is going on, because we'll ask the camper, we'll say, why do you want to talk to your parent? We'll ask them, why do you want to talk? And if they're not comfortable telling us, we're not going to force the issue. Just say, listen, I just really want to talk to my parent. And it happens for a variety of reasons. Sometimes there's something going on at home that they're nervous about. Sometimes, there's something going on that they don't feel comfortable telling a staff member about. Sometimes it's something pretty simple that we can resolve if they tell us what's going on. But so we'll call a parent and say, here's your kid wants to talk to you. Here's what we think is going on. And here's what we think is best. And the parent will say, they're not surprised at all. My kid always wants to talk to me. I think it'd be good for them not to talk to me. Here's what you can tell them. Encourage them to go on their way. They'll be home in 4 days. They're going to do great. Tell them we miss them, we love them, but they're doing great. So that's what it is. Or a parent might say, that's surprising. My kid never wants to talk to me. Like, if they want to talk to me, something must really be going on. And yes, I would really like to talk to them. And then we'll set up kind of the next convenient time. And oftentimes it's kind of like right after meals. That's the easiest time and the least disruptive time for us to have camper parent phone calls. And similarly, if a parent calls us and asks to talk to their kid, we will kind of try to be a buffer in a similar way and ask if there's anything that we can resolve, if there's anything that we need to check in on. We can go talk to the kid and kind of relay a message, or if it's, my kid hasn't written me, I need to know that they're alive. Like, I will go and put a piece of paper in front of that child and say, it is time for you to write home. Please write home. And they'll write a letter, and I will take a picture of it or scan it and get it right off to that parent. And again, sometimes a camper is like, wow, that's kind of strange. Like, my parent usually like lets me do my thing, like something must be going on, and I do want to talk to them. Or they might say, can you please tell my parent I'm having a really great time and I don't really want to chat. But again, we'll never if it's something that's important to have that conversation, we will certainly accommodate it, but it's not part of our general routine. I apologize if that was a long-winded response, but I think it's a really important thing for us all to build trust, for camp to build trust with parents and campers to understand why we kind of pause that sometimes for the camp impact. All right. Whew, that was a lot. What time? Oh, I saw that Miki, I think, was quick on the draw. Our buses for all of our Friday ends, so every session except for 2A and 3A, the buses generally arrive back in Evanston around 3 o'clock, give or take. We post updates to Camp in Touch because we have staff on the buses telling us when, like, if they're hitting traffic, if there's any sort of delays. And so we will post those updates to Camp in Touch so parents can kind of know when to arrive. Friday afternoons going through Chicago, traffic can be unpredictable. And so sometimes there are some significant delays, but 3 o'clock, give or take. We do ask you to arrive a little bit early because we need to check photo IDs of parents before campers get off the buses. All right, if a camper is coming to camp without a friend, is an effort made to pair them with other single campers that came on their own without a friend? Totally. So we put a lot of thought into kind of those cabin placements, and yeah, so like if we have groups of three, say it's a cabin of 10 campers and we have 3 groups of 3, we're gonna really try to not put a single camper in as that 10th camper. So we do try to be mindful in group campers. We take a look at what schools kids go to, so that maybe there's some other kids that they're going to camp with that they didn't even know we're going to camp, but they might know each other from the same school and not be friends or what have you. So it's we do try to be really thoughtful and intentional about those cabin placements to avoid campers being isolated amongst groups of friends. Do we do any skin checks for ticks? So we remind our campers regularly to do skin checks and to help each other with skin checks for ticks, and have signs posted in our kibos and our bathhouses for that as well. And so our counselors are reminding campers and helping each other for like backs to check each other's backs. But otherwise, campers are expected to make sure that they're checking themselves. And again, with our younger campers, our staff, with all of the health and safety reminders, our staff are trained to understand the difference between our younger campers, our rising 3rd and 4th graders, and what they need to implement some of those things versus our high school 9th, 10th, 11th grade campers, and even toothbrushing, sunscreen, similar things. A reminder is not enough for those younger campers. We have to really be guiding them on that process, and their transition times and their routines for self-care are going to be a little bit longer as we work with them to kind of learn more of that process to stay safe. No open questions. All right. Well, I'm going to pause. I'm going to stop the recording here. Thank you all so much for sticking around. We will stick around longer. If there are more questions, we'll give it a few minutes and maybe we'll just like come up with some fun questions to ask each other. But thank you all so much for tuning in to our traditional camp info session.